pitching to brands. They want to run me streets. See, for every one brand that we had on this show, I must have pitched to like 20, right? For every category. And it was challenging. I mean, I can't tell you how much time I spent writing proposals, making pitch decks, phone calls, doing meetings, all of that, trying to convince brands that this was a great idea and they should jump on it. Now, the first person to really believe in this idea and put her resources behind this was Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika. She was the first female chairperson of First Bank, Nigeria, and I knew that part of her legacy, something that she was very passionate about, was financial literacy for women, right? She came up with the idea for First Gem, and I knew it was something that she was passionate about, so I wanted to pitch it to her. Luckily, I had access because we both serve on the board of House of Tara. She's our chairman. So I had access, but I also know that Mrs. Awoshika is like a no-nonsense person. Like, I literally probably had like 5 minutes to pitch it to her. So I had to be intentional and strategic if I wanted to pique her interest. So one day after a board meeting, I corner her on her way to her car and I'm like, hello auntie, walking her to her car, and I basically pitch her the idea for the series. She looks indifferent but says to me, set up a meeting with my assistant, come and talk to me about this in the office, like be ready to pitch to me and all of that. So I went, I pitched it to her in her office. She loved it. So if you know Mrs. Awoshika, you know that she's a woman who supports women, but she's not just going to support you because you're a woman. You have to add value, and she's a big believer in corporate governance. So she gave me a leg in the door, but it would take me another 9 to 10 months to seek or get approval because it had to go through the corporate structure. It was tough. I almost gave up many times because, wow, bring this, bring that, lots of meetings and everything. But we got through it in the end. Unilever. So this was a funny story. I approached Unilever first through an agency. And, we started a negotiation process while we were already in production. So we were already filming and I was so sure that we were going to close it. So I called the team and I was like, go and buy locks, go and buy Pepsodents, things that we could put in the show, for product placement for Unilever. At some point after all the negotiations, it fell through and they basically came back and said, actually, we're not interested anymore. And I was like, okay, cool, move on. Fast forward to about 6 months later, I'm attending day 2 of the WIMBIZ conference with my mentor, Tara Feladurotue. And we're a bit late. And if you attend WIMBIZ, then you know that on day 2, there'll be a lot of people and you can't come late if you want to sit in front, and all of that. So we were not sure we would find a seat in front. But miraculously, we find 2 seats next to this lady who's sitting on maybe like the 3rd or 4th row. And so I sit on one side, Tara sits on the other. And then we're, watching the proceedings, and next thing, the lady taps me and passes me a copy of my second book, The Small Money Tribe, and says, please, can you sign it for me? And I was like, oh, amazing. So I sign it and say, oh, thank you so much for buying my book. And she goes, oh, I even sent you a DM on Instagram telling you how much I love your work and how it informs the way that I raise my daughters. I was just like, oh my God, thank you. That is such a huge, huge compliment. In Jesus' name, your daughters will be better than me because I'm crazy. And basically we start chit-chatting and I'm giving her all the WIMBIZ behind the scenes and commentary about the debates and things that are happening as we go along. So she became my seat gist partner. At some point she mentions that she is, wait for it, Bumi Adeniba, the marketing director at Unilever for home care in Ghana and Nigeria. So the Oga at the top. At that point, I was like, please let me shoot my shots. I then say, well, I'm working on this project, we're now in post-production, so we're editing and everything, but, I really wanted to work with Unilever, but it fell through. And she was like, I love everything that you're doing, and, I feel like Smart Money Woman would align really well with Sunlight and maybe even Pepsodent. Let me go back to the team and speak to them, because I think that, this makes sense for us, because we're very interested in female empowerment and all of that. So I was like, ace. But to be honest, I wasn't sure it was going to go anywhere. But about a month later, and I mean this, like, Bumi just passed me on to a team. I don't know what she told them, but about a month later, we'd closed this deal, and I was basically getting 10 times what I had initially tried to negotiate with the agency. Amazing. So I'll always be grateful to Bumi Adeniba for being so invested in female empowerment and supporting this project the way that she did. I spent so much time pitching to telcos, guys. So much time, because I had all these ideas. Listen, they pop up when they text. There's going to be a lot of texting in the show. When they text, your logo will pop up. I can't tell you how many times we did mock-ups, that would send to the different brands, all the meetings that we had. It was very interesting that we ended up with Airtel, because I probably spent the longest time, pitching to Airtel. And the thing was, they never actually said no throughout the time I was pitching to them, but it just always got stuck at one, level. Like, they weren't sure, like, this girl that has not produced this show before. Sounds like an interesting idea, but can she execute, I guess, was the thing. So after going to multiple telcos and everything, I remember Choma, who works in CSR at Airtel, such a darling. She introduced me to the brand manager, Tokumba Dodo. He was amazing. And just as we went through the process, but the person that really, really changed the game for me was my homegirl, Mrs. Ajumogobia, who I don't know why she loves me, but she's always been so kind and supportive of me since we were on the planning committee for WIMBIZ 1 year. And listen, when I discovered that she was on the board of Airtel, I think, but not the Nigerian board, I was like, wow, Auntie, this is my issue. And she was like, give me some time, I'll get back to you. I think she called the MD, because they called me and they were like, oh yeah, actually we're gonna do this, like, we'll support your project, all of that. So thank you, Mrs. Ajumogobia. You are so amazing. I love you. MasterCard. Okay, this was a very interesting story that started in Dubai and ended in Lagos. And it started with my friend and chief economist, Chinwe Egwim, who, was gracious enough to have conversations with me about, okay, which brands should I approach? And she basically said to me, listen, I met a lady called Omokende who works at MasterCard. I'm not sure if she still works there or if they moved her to Dubai, but let me find out and see if she will talk to you. So Chinwe does her introductions, I prepare my pitch. Omokende gives me a time to call her in Dubai. I pitch it to her. She's like, oh yeah, like, I know your work, I love your work, I think this sounds like a great idea, but let me, give it to the team in Lagos and see if they'll be interested in it. But they should be, because I think it's an amazing, project. So big shout out to Toju, Ifoma Dozier. Like, I'm so grateful. The MasterCard team was such a joy to work with. Like, I loved working with them so much. They were amazing. So thank you guys. I'm so grateful. So Virgin Atlantic was amazing, because we started talking to them early on in the process. I'd gone through an agency, but it got stuck at one point, and Uche Pedro basically came in and introduced me to Omolola, and it was amazing, because she was like, okay, I think this is something that, makes sense for us. And we had all these plans about shooting in a Virgin plane. I wanted all kinds of things, but they were so accommodating, but there was only so much that we could do in this short period of time that, we had, to shoot. But we made it work in the end. So thank you, Virgin Atlantic. So what were my big lessons from this part of the process? One, Oga and Madam may have sent you, but you still have to go through multiple layers of personal bias and politics. So the great side of bootstrapping like this was it forced us to be creative. We had to be creative about solutions as opposed to throwing money at the problem at every instance. But the downside of it was stressful and became more expensive than it had to be, because brands don't pay you in bulk, they pay you in tranches. And it basically meant that we had to wait for each tranche to come for us to get to the next level. And sometimes, that created like a disconnect and just made things a bit more expensive than they had to be. So it was a great, learning process. And I had so much to prove with season 1 that this model could work, that this model was, profitable, and that we could really execute on this scale. So I'm so grateful to all the brands that supported us, because we would never be on the Netflix level if we couldn't fund it when we were going to put it on Africa Magic. So thank you.